Ready up on. Yes, a very good morning and a hearty welcome to Theodicy class. Well, we are with godlessness and atheism. We have defined it, and then how godlessness and atheism, with its specific definition, is different from or is similar to faith in, believe in God. That was the first thing that we have. So in other words, godlessness and atheism and believe in God. We had a little bit of comparison, and finally we said, well, both are in a particular predicament, and the predicament is that the person who says he believes in God has to live as exactly as he believes, otherwise it is a problem. And then others, they live as if there is no God, but then there is a value system in their life. And then finally we said a believer is one becoming, not that believer is a finished product in the sense as once you are baptized or once you call yourself a particular religion, you are perfect. No. But rather, it's an everyday activity of becoming, and that is how. And then we have gone to the different types of godlessness and atheism, and the most important one was being dealt with the other two classes, last two classes, namely, yes, scientific and aristocratic godlessness. And we have elaborately gone into it because something very important, that idea, because science takes its departure or starting point is no affirmation of God, doesn't approve, because for a free way of investigation, no presupposition is accepted. I hope you will understand. Yes, and then science also helps religion in updating itself. A better version of religion is also come because of scientific discoveries and innovations. All that is. And then we cannot also underestimate the importance of this scientific and aristocratic godlessness, because it's the elite group, educated in the sense elite group, who enter into the mysteries of world, in mysteries of life, and they always have a starting point with no affirmation of any basic presupposition, even as God. God as a basic. In other words, the starting point is different. So, and all that is, and we have analyzed 3-4 self-responsible character of science, scientific godlessness creates a climax of, and all that we have seen. And now, well, we go into the second one, kinds of godlessness and atheism. First one that we have dealt with was scientific and aristocratic godlessness. The second one is humanistic godlessness. Humanistic godlessness. Yes, from the title itself, it is clear for you. Yes, importance and insistence is being a human being is given utmost importance. In other words, all that is part of, all that is essential of humanity is given importance. Then the next point also is a similar one, but then a slightly different one. So, in other words, human beings and their potentials and their search for truth, all that is given importance. In other words, yes, all that is giving, yes, God is giving way to all aspects of human life. In other words, human worth is highlighted. And that's why, while Merleau-Ponty, we will be coming to Merleau-Ponty. You have seen it in the second year. Yes, we had made reference to second year philosophy. Made reference to Merleau-Ponty. Merleau-Ponty he said, yes, bring all the qualities of yourself you have deposited elsewhere in God, bring down. These are your qualities. These are the qualities being possessed by human beings, and then deposit in human beings themselves and then try to develop it. Don't project it to God. And then he wanted to develop a philosophy. It is only recalling your memory to what you have studied in the second year. So he could not develop a philosophy of that, but then he asked his disciple to develop it. Who is that disciple? You remember? Yes, you remember? Yes, you need to remember. Yes, that is the famous Karl Marx. Karl Marx developed a philosophy, and that is what is called dialectical materialism. Yes, if you are in the class, you would have gone with the good marks. Materialism. In other words, yes, he has simply borrowed the basic notions of Hegel and then developed a philosophy. What is Hegelian notion of reality? Yes, there are 3 points in that. Again, another 10 marks question. You lose it. Otherwise, before the exam itself, you would have got more than 100 marks. Okay, what is Hegelian notion of reality? Hegelian notion of reality, and that is already taken over by Karl Marx and developed dialectical materialism. What is Hegelian notion of reality? Yes, according to Hegel, reality is in a process. Contradiction is the root of life. Basic reality is idea, reason, or spirit. So reality is in a process, contradiction is the root of life, and reality is, what is reality at bottom? At bottom, reality is idea, reason, or spirit. So in other words, idea, reason, or spirit is in a process. It is today this, tomorrow that, and then thesis, antithesis, and synthesis. Yes, a recap of all what you studied at the end of your second year. So, the reality is in a process, and then what is at the core of it? Contradiction is the root of life. And that is why the famous theory of dialectics, what is that? Thesis, antithesis, synthesis. So, reality is today this, tomorrow that, and then there is a kind of synthesis. And that synthesis in turn becomes, yes, another thesis, and then antithesis, and then you have studied logic, idea, reason, idea, nature, spirit. That is the general triad. So, yes, idea in itself, idea goes into out of itself, in thesis, antithesis, and then there is a synthesis. And then there is idea, nature, spirit, and all these with triads. Clear? Again triads that you have already studied. So in other words, reality is in a process, contradiction is the root of life, basic reality is idea, reason, or spirit. That is in a process, and that was Hegelian triad, Hegelian notion of reality, and that was taken over by Karl Marx, and then he developed, yes, this is called dialectical idealism. Okay, borrowed the essentials of a dialectical idealism by Karl Marx the disciple of Merleau-Ponty and developed dialectical materialism. What is the basic concept about reality? Reality is in a process. Contradiction is the root of life. Basic reality is no longer idea, reason or spirit, rather matter. So that's why it is called dialectical materialism. So Merleau-Ponty is the one who said, well, you have deposited in God certain qualities. Those qualities are yours. Take it back. Therefore, here too, you come across similar idea. What is that? Humanistic godlessness. In other words, human beings, his capacities, his essential aspects, qualities are given very importance. Therefore, best, they say, no to God. Yes, we are interested in developing ourselves. So that is what this particular idea means. Yes, humanistic, yes, godlessness. Okay, I'll explain and then we go into the next idea. Well, as the caption indicates, the greatest priority is placed on being. The greatest priority is placed on being human. This is the point. Clear? Nothing else. Greatest priority is being given for being human. In other words, as a what Merleau-Ponty, we will be coming in the next point with Merleau-Ponty, but then, well, giving importance for human beings. In other words, there is no question of talking about God, but rather, yes, about human being. That is the point. So that is what is called humanistic godlessness. So you just always remember and directly connect with the definition of godlessness and atheism. Godlessness is a way of being, practical way of living, yes, without God. At the same time, insisting on human values. So that is what typically we are talking here. Don't miss the definition and the major premise. Once you have the definition, then you can even find out your own explanations. Okay, all right. Greatest priority is placed on being human. Yes, that's something very important. Priority is that, not God, about being human. The denial of God or godlessness is mainly to safeguard, to protect, to take care, and all that is, yes, to safeguard. The priority is to safeguard humanism, human qualities, human capabilities. Therefore, please, that is, godlessness is mainly to safeguard, develop. Yes, developing humanness. That's the point. Okay, develop human freedom and responsibility. Responsibilities. In other words, instead of, yes, if you put it inverted comma, depending somewhere on an unknown realm for something, yes, safeguard your humanness, develop your freedom, be responsible as a human being. You see? That's the thing. Now, even these have their own defects. What are they? Yes, we go on developing. If you develop, that is what you have seen already in existentialism. The beginning, anthropology, you have seen. Yes, you say, yes, I am going to develop my humanness. This is only a kind of footnote like. You don't simply go with one-eyed view. That is only what I'm giving a little bit of caution to you. You develop yourself. You safeguard yourself. You develop your freedom. You are responsible with yourself. You don't care of your neighbor or brethren. What is that? And that is what was the philosophy developed by Nietzsche and Sartre. I am condemned to be free and all. That we have already gone with anthropology. So it's not now my business now again to pick it up. So there is a danger that you should not forget that we have seen in anthropology already. I am cautioning it. Some students will simply sit and if this is a thing, no God, that is no. That's not what I want to tell. You are studying philosophy. You study philosophy with both eyes and one mind. And so that you must be able to distinguish what is what and what is not what. That's the thing. Therefore, here too, what? Humanistic godlessness, yes, is a practical way of living, telling that, well, not depending on God, depending on myself. Okay, develop humanness, safeguard, protect human nature, develop freedom in me, be responsible. Yes, these are the ideas coming under that. Generally, people affirm a supreme being. Well, that is what in ancient and medieval and modern and all we have seen. Generally, people affirm a supreme being and call him God in order to receive grace from him. It's not simply calling somebody. Well, according to Christian understanding, we know what it is. Clear, no? Yes, a loving God, a caring God, a protecting God, a God who, yes, knows even the fall of your, yes, hair. And a God who tells us that you are being carved, taken care of in His hands. And with our undue worries, can we even develop, grow, make a little more growth in our life? That's all His. That's a different understanding. But then humanism is slightly different. Clear? Okay. Generally, people affirm a supreme being and call him God in order to receive grace from him. In contrast, the humanistic atheist will argue that all what counts in life, in one's life, originate from other persons, not from God, from other persons. Yes, all what you are is received from your parents. What they were is received from their parents. What they were received from their parents. But then, well, there was a mutual help. That is what is called humanism. Okay, originate from persons. The human beings are those who give grace and meaning to man's life. Yes. So in other words, all what we do here on earth is highlighted, and then there is nothing more above is reflected in humanistic godlessness. Rest is only just an explanation. The humanists refuse to relate grace with Supreme God, Supreme Being, who is the giver and keeper of grace. This is meaningless for them because the daily life of the human beings are very often colored with suffering, war, injustice, etc. Well, normal experience. Well, even the happiest man will have to go with negatives in life. Thereby, we don't say that there is no supreme value. No, there is something that we cannot completely uphold. But then, from the point of view, when we are to study Theodicy, we need also to learn what is humanism. Okay. War, injustice, etc. In the midst of these evil experiences, grace-giving God is a big contradiction. That's what humanists say. Clear? Humanists. Hence, they do away with such fictitious beings. Okay. This humanistic arguments leads them to an ethical reflection, namely, morality can be based upon human responsibility. I am called to be a brother to my neighbor. Clear? I need to be responsible. If I find some means to fill in my daily stomach, I must be equally also responsible for the other. Yes, I must be. Yes, we have seen already in anthropology, Levinas philosophy. Yes, the face of the other. Follow. Very, very interesting topic. Clear. And then the face of the other. creates in me a responsibility for the other. Yes, the face of the other creates in me a responsibility for the other, and that dimension is leading to God too in Levinas. But here they say limit with humanistic approach itself. Okay, these humanistic arguments leads them to an ethical reflection, namely morality can be based upon human responsibility. Morality is human responsibility. Follow? What is that human responsibility? Yes, and not up to an irresponsible attribution of guilt. Humanistic objection, consequently, is not towards the Creator God of whom we know nothing, but rather ethical objection to be seen in the cooperate endeavor of human existence. So in other words, yes, humanists will say, instead of asking God, give us, yes, you give. That's the point. So that is what is called humanism. Okay, next paragraph. Acceptance of God can lead to a harmful hypothesis. That is what is the humanistic understanding. And now will come Sartre. What do Sartre say? Sartre, for example, can be explained. You only need to write there Sartre, because I have given notes about Sartre. Contemporary history of Western philosophy studied at length about Sartre. That doesn't mean that you write the whole thing there. No. What is Sartre's notion of humanism? In other words, he says, yes, it is our responsibility. That's all. Human consciousness is endowed with the tremendous power of freedom. Sartre. He is capable of going beyond itself. In this process, man is capable of creating himself as a subject. Man is capable of creating himself as a subject. But in this process, he is encountered with other subjects who restricts and objectifies him through their stares. Look, we have seen that already. But this objectifying process can be contracted, and the subject can retaliate and defend in being objectified. However, we accept the existence of God, we are accepting a subject who can never be made into an object. You can reduce the other into an object, but you cannot reduce God into an object. That's the point by Sartre. We are accepting a subject who can never be, if we accept God, we are accepting a subject who can never be made into an object, and for whom we can only are objects. In other words, yes, in our objectification we can reduce the other into an object, but regarding God, God will reduce you to an object. You cannot reduce God into an object. Therefore, he rejects God. And that is what is Sartre's notion. Clear? Consequently, if God exists, this sentence I had dictated while talking about anthropology. If God exists, there is a danger of my being an object always. Follow? Without having a power of freedom. Hence, God is a threat. That is humanistic. Godlessness, you can make use of Sartre and Nietzsche. Now comes our famous Merleau-Ponty. Truth for Merleau-Ponty is something historical and never completed social process. If God's existence is accepted, consequently we need to believe in absolute truth, which will put an end to human search for freedom and truth. Man's capacity to create a new social order, new value system is challenged. Hence, for Merleau-Ponty, Merleau-Ponty makes the statement, metaphysical and moral consciousness dies when it reaches the absolute. In other words, our reflections will die out if you fix it on God. So therefore, these philosophers insist upon humanistic godlessness. Human freedom, humanness is given importance, develop human freedom, be a responsible person, and then safeguard, protect humanity. That is what is humanistic godlessness. And now, 3, 1, 3. That will be the last one, namely political and democratically godlessness or democratic godlessness. Political and democratic godlessness. What does it mean? It is more in line with humanistic godlessness. Political. Yes, in other words, social network is developed politically and democratically. In other words, we bring in education, so many things, with a government in order, in place, and all that is clear. Therefore, this is to be given importance. It will fall in line with the humanism. Follow. Therefore, you develop a kind of an option for a kind of political. As the caption indicates, this kind of godlessness is rooted in the necessity of satisfying social, social, economic and political needs. Social, economic, political needs. And that is what is called political and democratic godlessness. Clear? So in other words, yeah, that is why some of the national leaders, they talk about don't go anywhere, yes, I am your provider and all that. A lot of insistence. Here you can apply Karl Marx. Karl Marx theory is a typical political network. In other words, God is for him is opium, God cannot be accepted, and then develop your own. Yes, man as a worker. Remember, yes, in second year you studied and also in third year you studied. Man as a worker, yes, through work two things happens. What happens? Yes, first of all, you self-realization and then humanization of nature. In other words, through your activity, you realize yourself, simultaneously you also humanize the nature. That is something very important and to be remembered too. Clear? So in other words, in order to satisfy the political, democratic, economic aspects, religion and God symbolizes the estrangement from the socio-economic structures, and they are symbols of suffering. They say God's existence creates a parasite, economic social structure. Politically, they see God as powerful monarch disinterested in people. So in other words, telling and sitting that God will provide, that will reduce the human capacity in finding solution to the problem. So in other words, merely Pondi and all, remember, take out all what is yours and develop it. Secondly, religion symbolizes ineffectual and vain protest against misery. Yes, the context of misery. That is to say, in the name of God and religion, attempts are made to protest against the poverty and oppression, but they are, in the last analysis, perpetuators of poverty, and radical solution was not given. Okay, a God who cannot change unjust social structures and create just social structure is not effective. Again, religion and God are said to be seductive. or opium, which you have studied in second year. Opium giving vain hopes, clear, vain hopes, that is Karl Marx's idea. That is to say, they do not guarantee a total relief of the socio-economic situations. In conclusion, so we are just concluding what are the godlessness and atheism and the definition of it and distinguishing it with what you call faith in God or faith in God, and then going into different types of godlessness. One is, yes, godlessness, yes, scientific and aristocratic. Second one is, yes, what we have seen, humanistic. And the third one is political and democratic godlessness. So, a kind of conclusion like you can say, right, in conclusion, we can say the political and economic and even democratically godlessness is actually a result of and a protest against all forms of religion. So, the second and third one, not the first one. First one we have analyzed beautifully, science and aristocratic. There is something, science is complementing religion, religion is complementing and all we have seen. But these two are opposed to religion. Actually a result and a protest against all forms of religions that present a God who does not take into consideration the oppressive social structures and economic deprivation. So in other words, they cannot approve a God who in some way goes agreeing with social oppression. Therefore, God is forgotten and social oppression and well-being of people are given importance. Therefore, we are concluding that section with a second point. Well, if you go through your notes, you will find we had been with 3.1, that is godlessness and atheism and all definitions and all that is, and then kinds of godlessness and atheism. There are three. One was, okay, scientific and aristocratic godlessness or atheism. Yeah, that was the first point. And second one is humanistic godlessness and atheism. Third one is political and democratic godlessness. So that is what all about. And then now we go 3.1, 3.2. Namely, yes, the could be origin. Okay, it's only a very short one. The could be origin of godlessness and atheism. And then only that section will be comprehensive, complete, otherwise it will be partial. Why at all? Why at all? Yes, the could be origin of 3.2. The could be origin could be means how it is. The could be origin of, yes, is understood, of godlessness and atheism. Where does it originate? From where godlessness and atheism originate? That's the thing. Yes. We have already given enough and more hint while distinguishing belief in God and godlessness and atheism. Clear? So, we will find it. That's what we are going to recap here as a kind of. That could be origin. How this godlessness and atheism is originated. That's the point. Okay. When we analyze the godlessness, we are once again confronted or confirmed by our statement that it is very difficult to speak of atheism in an absolute sense. That was more or less our conclusion. It's very difficult to talk about atheism in an absolute sense. What does it mean? Yes, you don't find it. You don't find an atheist here on earth. The one who is going on saying, I am an atheist, I am an atheist. Well, the most vulnerable situation comes, he will raise his eyes. It's also said, when you're writing in your notes, but then, yes, one famous atheist was telling, thank God I am an atheist. What is the sentence? Thank God, yes, I am an atheist. Thank God. In other words, unknowingly, unconscious, or in a semi-conscious consciousness form also, you have to affirm. And that's what he said, thank God I am an atheist. He is proclaiming himself as an atheist, but then he is thanking God. Well, you may have your interpretation, I have my interpretation. In other words, at least he is calling God first, and then only says. In other words, we said godlessness, less of God being felt in certain situations. Atheism, no to, why? In certain particular situations. So, it is very difficult to speak of atheism in an absolute sense. Relative sense says that is what is called godlessness, atheism and all. But then, atheism in an absolute sense, unequivocally, means without any, without any adulteration, pure Sat, as atheism you don't find. That's the thing. Clear? Okay. Because all these gymnastics are shown because you are all in your respective houses. Follow. Godlessness and atheism seem to be attitudes reacting to a crisis situation. Yes, it's an attitude reacting to a particular crisis situation. Reacting to a crisis situation. Follow? Yes. It's an attitude. A crisis situation is reacted. Yes, that's what we have already discussed. The most beloved person, yes, met with an accident, in whom you had your greater confidence that he will rear you up or he will lead you into a wonderful life. Lost. Definitely there is a crisis situation in life. Therefore we ask, where is God? If God were to exist, this would not happen. Yes. What did Martha say? If you were here, my brother would not have. That's a fact. Therefore, we say the could be origin is what is. First of all, there is no absolute sense we don't find in an absolute sense we don't find an atheist. Yes. Secondly, yes, it is also a crisis situation. In a crisis situation, you call out and you say many things that you don't mean. Yes, exactly as we said, in absolute sense, in 100% you don't mean. Yes, once that crisis situation is overcome, you are a different person. Okay, they could be summed up in 3 categories, only 3 sentences, you don't worry. Clear? Yes, my friend is getting, yes, agitated. So it's only in 3 sentences. Clear? In other words, the crisis situation. Clear? Is, there could be, the could be origin, yes, could be summed up into 3 categories. 1, 2, 3, no need. Simply points one after another. So remember these 2 points first. What is that? In the absolute sense, you don't find an atheist. And then atheism is there precisely because of a particular crisis, emerges from a particular crisis situation. But then summing up everything, we can say, well, God is supernatural. God is supernatural and unnecessary because of science. That's the first part. Clear? Yes, God is supernatural. Yes, He is beyond the natural. You don't find Him as you find things in nature. Clear? Yes, teak tree you see, mango tree you see, okay, gooseberry tree, all right, Vijnana Nilayam, yes, you have, yes, all that you see, but you don't see God as you see natural things. So, God is supernatural and unnecessary because of science. Why? Yes, science is telling science will satisfy everything. Follow, no? Yes, but then that's why science is taking a departure from God. But then science is also, yes, in their departure from God, in their search for the unknown, they reach in God. That's the point. Second one is, God is fatal to human freedom and responsibility. God is fatal to human responsibility and freedom. So, look at the first one is coming from a conclusion we are drawing from scientific and aristocratic consciousness. Second one is from, yes, humanism and, yes, the other point. And then the third one is, God is unthinkable, contradictory and impossible because of evil. We cannot think of God. God and evil cannot go together. So God is unthinkable because of the prevalence of evil in life. So the whole issue of godlessness and atheism is to be understood in a situational manner. Yes. In a situational manner. So that is what our conclusion is all about. So don't get confused. Now we jump into the next section, that is approaches to God. Yes, in what way we can talk about God? How are we as a philosophy students to approach God? Clear? So that is what is going to be the next section. Clear? As a preliminary step to it, we have seen all those things. So the chapter 4 will be approaches to God. And a reminder now, brothers, students, take all the proofs for God's existence, particularly Thomistic position, and that we will be going to analyze it, and then the rest of it we will see. Clear? Thank you. We will see again. Thank you.